to feel impenetrable, invulnerable. And the reality is that they're not. They're absolutely vulnerable to the impacts of trauma. My passion for this mission comes from my pain.
Other matters are the psychological and physiological health of prisoners. Departments need to be aware that suicide is a problem.
My name is Nick Wilson. I was a police officer for 13 years, and I medically retired. I got injured on the job, and so 3 years later, I started the Resiliency Project, and I'm the founder of our nonprofit organization. I have a son, Jack, who is my reason for everything that I'm doing. I was afraid of what others might think about me. I was afraid of the stigma that is attached to getting the help necessary in order to live a happier life and live a healthier life. And so untreated trauma, for as long as I was experiencing it, led to my eventual downfall, both in my personal life and my professional life. The environment in the first responder community is one that never gave permission to, let's say, police officers to experience the normal reactions that they have from witnessing abnormal events that they see every single day. And so we see the suicide rate at where it's at now. And a lot of that is because of untreated trauma and maladaptive coping that exists and starts to permeate in our lives on a daily basis. And that's one area in which I'm very familiar in. And with me, I lost my way. And as a result, I lost more than I ever had to in the first place, had I just gone to get the help that I needed to get. As a result of that, I was getting treated for my sleeping issues, but there was a lot more beneath not being able to sleep that was wrong with me. And so during the time of getting treated for that, they also diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress. And I knew then, but I didn't tell anybody because I was so ashamed and embarrassed at the time, because I thought that I would be ostracized from the people that I work with. I started a process of emotionally numbing myself so I didn't have to feel the pain that I was experiencing. Everything changed when that happened. And I can't go back and change those things. All I can do is respond the way I am now after my own 3.5-year healing journey that I've been on. And my goal is to help first responders in this country who are experiencing the same thing, but are too afraid to come forward to get the help that they need. And so the Resiliency Project is going to be providing funding and peer support and helping them to get treatment for psychological services and recovery services, as well as anything having to do with wellness in a preventative way to end suicide. That was my rock bottom. And I didn't know how else to deal with the impacts of the trauma. I did not understand hypervigilance. I didn't understand compassion fatigue. And when the crash happened, I remember sitting there and so worried about the stigma of it, and thinking while in that driver's seat, everyone is going to know my secret. Everybody's going to see that I am vulnerable. I'm not invulnerable. I'm not what I thought that I was, which was this stoic robot person that could continue seeing what first responders have to see on a daily basis and not be affected by those things. It's unimaginable. And we all need to be able to get the help that we need when the impacts of trauma enter our life. And so many people think that it's a sign of weakness to ask for help or to get the help that they need, and it's not as a result. But by then, I've gotten so bad in my own health, in my own, overall mental health, that those in my family decided that they just couldn't watch it anymore, and they left. And during that entire period, I also had one of my brothers, who I no longer speak with, encouraging me to take my own life. And so that became the fight of my life, to start living instead of giving up. And so ever since then, it's been not just a fight, but really practicing what it is that I've learned in my trauma work. And so I'm grateful to be here. And every day that I live, is another day that I get to enjoy helping either a first responder or being with my son. Across the country, our first responders are seeing the worst of what humanity does to each other. And with that comes exposure to the level of stress that the majority of our civilian population will never experience in a month. And all of the research that I have really come to understand and study over the last 3.5 years of doing this comes from Dr. John Violante, who's an expert in police suicide. And the parallels behind what I read in his books to my life are extraordinary. And so this is a real problem. This is a very significant issue, and we have to start doing something about it. There is too much friction between law enforcement and the community, every community that we see across the country. And so we need to start taking action steps to bridge the gap and to create a community of understanding so that we can start making mental health more acceptable culturally for our police officers. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, and I wish I knew then what I know now. And I wish that the fear of stigma wasn't what it is. I would have, if I saw this coming, I would have definitely tried to change things then. The Resiliency Project is a multifaceted organization. We're not just providing peer support and/or funding for treatment and recovery services. We are an advocate for first responder mental health, but we had to create something that was culturally specific for first responders. And so we have, and when our campus is built, we're going to be having a treatment and recovery center on there. It's a culturally competent treatment center with clinicians who are culturally and clinically competent with treating them. And we're going to use a wide variety of treatment modalities to do so. A lot of these things have been around for a long time, but we haven't seen a healing center that really attacks the unique stressors that first responders experience from all different angles. And so it's going to be, without equivocation, a game changer. Our philosophy is that we should be able to provide these services for free. And so we now are going to be taking in and have already provided help for first responders who have come to us. This is going to morph into something that hopefully will be viewed as the gold standard of treatment in the country for our first responders. This is a very much an action-oriented organization. So we're not just out there trying to destigmatize things, we're actually trying to provide resources for them. There are a lot of amazing organizations in the country who honor the fallen. We want to honor the living. We have to keep our first responders alive. For the last 3.5, 4 years, the suicide rate has been higher than at any other point in history for police officers and firefighters. And so, as a country, we can do more for them. We should be doing more for them. They are out there every single day, paying the ultimate sacrifice and experiencing the hellacious things that people do to one another. And in their own personal lives, all we see are the divorce rates that continue climbing and those who continue the process of emotionally numbing out, like I did. And that maladaptive coping strategy that is used is where the term silent suffering comes into play. That is what that's all about. Because police officers were constructed to be protectors. They're constructed in the academy to feel impenetrable, invulnerable. And the reality is that they're not. They're absolutely vulnerable to the impacts of trauma. My passion for this mission comes from my pain. After the divorce and not being able to see my boy every day is heartbreaking. And I never saw that kind of pain coming. And every time I see another police officer who's getting arrested for DUI or getting a divorce or taking their life, it breaks my heart. And so my goal, my vision, my mission is to decrease and end suicide of first responders by providing a pathway to heal, to make it so that it is okay to not be okay. And I firmly believe that in this country, if we start working together, bringing in all the other nonprofits across the country into a coalition and continue speaking about the impacts of trauma in an effort to destigmatize things, we will save lives. We have to change the culture. In order to do that, we really need the funding to do it. And if that campus is built and we're able to provide our first responders with all types of those treatment modalities for free, we're taking all potential areas or avenues or excuses off the table, and they can come there without fear of retribution from their agencies or having to deal with the red tape that we see with insurance and with workers' comp. And so this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. This is a mission that we know is going to be very difficult to do, but we're going to do it. And we're going to need everyone's help in order to achieve those ends. I loved the job. I loved what I was able to do. And I was very grateful at the end of my career to have been able to do all those things. I am beyond grateful for the board. They are all individually leaders in their own departments and have come into my life in a very special way. Each of them possess amazing judgment and leadership, and it's the board that's going to be able to take the Resiliency Project to where it needs to be. We also have a clinical psychologist, Dr. Heather Williams, on the board, and I couldn't be any prouder. Law enforcement officers that have incredible amounts of experience. We have detectives and sergeants and pilots and canine handlers, and they're amazing, and I couldn't be any more proud that they're on the board and I get to work with them every day.